government of India was under a lot of interest to develop this because of the COVID-19 19 outbreak. Next slide. But if you look at a Google search and you look at these three hit searches that I've done, virtual doctor visit or virtual clinic doctor or virtual doctor consultation, you will see that there are millions of hits. In other words, this has been in operation and acting since since a significant amount of time. And in fact, in India, there is a Telemedicine Society of India, which has been operational for the last 4 years. So really speaking, this is not new. Next. So the value of virtual is that the telehealth is going to be a game changer. And if you see, there are lots of logos that I put here, which represents businesses that are providing technology and services for this. And you can see on the middle left hand side that something is available for $10. If you look at the bottom, you will see get free doctor consultation on phone video for 30 days. So not only are the technology available, and there are more than 100 such apps available already in India, but they are providing at highly discounted or even free for several patients. Next, please. Now, interestingly, IMA brought out this letter, and this is from headquarters of IMA. And what does it say? It says IMA does not support use of telemedicine or online consultation. And I think this is really a joke. This is something, some decision that was taken by one of the office bearers, maybe the president of IMA. And let me tell you that this is actually a little resistance that has come in just now, but it is of no value. But even more important is where else we will find resistance when we start using the telemedicine consultation under the guidelines by the government of India, which is shown in the next slide. Now, this next slide is a snapshot of WhatsApp status of several of my colleagues who are on the same group. And I have highlighted 4 status on some of my colleagues. So Mangesh says, no emergency messages, please. Ashay says, no WhatsApp or phone consultations. Muzammil Sheikh says, no WhatsApp consultations, please. So this is the minority. Majority of us are more than happy to talk to our patients on phone or WhatsApp because we are intending to give benefit to the patients. And so far, whatever we are doing was not having a legal status. Now, since 25th March, this is all legal. And therefore, this is an official way of dealing with patients. And because it is official, we are able to charge fees for it. And that is an advantage to us. Next slide, please. So virtual clinics is a way to go forward. In fact, if you look at United Kingdom, on Friday the 13th of last year, they had a face-to-face conference only on setting up and running virtual clinics. And for those who are participating today, we will make available online an entire book consisting of 14 chapters on how to set up and conduct your virtual clinics. So you will have all the resources and the information available to do it in the right way. Next slide. So why virtual visits and medical consultations make sense? I'm sure you all know, but I've just summarized this. You can still consult me, that is doctors, even if the patient is not able to come to any clinic or hospital. Both of us on a virtual video consultation can see each other in a real-time basis. And while it saves time and stress and the travel for the patient, the cost will be the same and the doctor can get his face. So this is really good news for us. Next. So what is required? What we require is a charged computer or a smartphone with a built-in camera and microphone. And I think this is taken for granted that the camera and microphone will always be there. This is important that it is charged properly because we want to hear and see uninterrupted till the end of the consultation. Second is that you should start the process in a quiet place so that both of us can see and hear each other in real time. And a good internet connection is the lifeline for any virtual clinic and video consultation. So we will have to make sure that a good internet connection is present. And I think in most urban areas, this is not a problem. Next slide, please. Now, what to do before the appointment starts? So first is to send an email or a WhatsApp to the patient with the date and time of appointment. Please remember that under the telemedicine guidelines, when to do the telemedicine consultation or when to do the video consultation is the prerogative of the doctor. The patient cannot insist कि अभी का अभी मुझे चाहिए. Doctor has to decide the time and place for the appointment. And we should also send the patient a SOP for what he should follow while undergoing the consultation. We can also ask our staff to send reminders, maybe the previous day or 9 a.m. in the morning of the date of appointment, and even 60 minutes before the appointment. This is to ensure that we are not waiting for the patient to join and therefore we are not wasting our time. We should also send in advance instructions on how the patient party can download the app, sign up, log in, and upload documentation so that he is able to use the chat as well. We should also write down and share online list of all the questions and queries that the patient might have. So we should tell him, please send this in advance or please send it at the time of the consultation starting. Next, please. The fifth step is to check our appearance, our attire, our location, our surrounding, whether lighting is there or not, whether I will be able to hear properly, so I should use earphones or not. And we should log in a few minutes before, like many of you did for this webinar, so that there is no problem of a bandwidth issue leading to a delayed login. Once the login is done and the patient is also logged in, the first thing we should do as per telemedicine guideline is to verify the patient's identity. So what we need to verify is name, date of birth, and the best way to do that is to use a government issued photo ID. If Aadhaar card is shared, that is ideal because it contains the patient's photo, the date of the birth, the address, and the full name. Government Supreme Court ruling says we cannot insist on an Aadhaar card. So what I do is I ask a question. Do you mind sharing your Aadhaar card both sides? And 9 out of 10 patients have absolutely no problem in sharing the Aadhaar card. We should also refresh our memory regarding the patient's medical condition, whatever report he has provided in advance before starting the conversation. And when the connection happens, we have to give out positive vibes. So we should smile, use a polite and happy tone to greet the patient and wave so that he knows that the video has started and we know that his video is not frozen. After that, we wait for the patient to respond with the greeting in a similar manner before we start the video consultation. So this is basic etiquette while dealing with the patient so that we express a professional way of dealing with these things. Next. So now look at the patient by looking directly at the device camera. Sometimes the device camera on a laptop or desktop might not be right in the center, or the angle of viewing of the camera might be slightly distorted. So I will show you how I'm going to rotate my laptop so that I can straighten and put my position in the center of the screen, and so also the patient should do the same. We should also not be distracted by a phone call or by somebody else walking into the room so that the patient understands that we are giving full attention. And we should also add visual cues like nodding our head to convey some sort of understanding, or we make a sign with the hand to show that we have understood. We should convey, in short, we should convey the best possible way, that as if we are having a face-to-face consultation, and then the patient is satisfied. As necessary, I have already mentioned, we should adjust the lighting, the distance from the device, the volume of the audio, and also tell him to show specific parts that we want to examine visually, remotely through a video. In case of any error, because of poor connectivity, audio issues, or freezing video or call drop, we should not waste our time. We should ask our staff to reconnect with the patient. And when that reconnection happens, we can join back into the video consultation. If for any reason that is not possible, we should schedule a fresh appointment. So again, the telemedicine guidelines are very clear that for whatever reason, the appointment can be paused and a fresh appointment can be given by the doctor. And again, this is our prerogative. So we have no problem in postponing or delaying a video consultation. Next slide, please. Now, when all the consultation discussions are over and the patient has, asked all his questions and we have seen all the reports, how do we conclude such a virtual consultation so that the patient feels satisfied? First is we should ask the patient, do you have any other questions or are you satisfied with the video consultation? These two questions are important. We should also tell the patient how you are going to send the prescription to him in case we are sending a prescription, and this could be by email or WhatsApp or whatever. We should also tell the patient when he should consult us next, whether it is by video consultation or in-person consultation. So give a specific next appointment. We thank the patient and remind them what to do in case of emergency. This is most important. We should always have some way of telling the patient that in case of emergency, please report to the nearest doctor or hospital. Please do not call me, because on video consultation or telemedicine, we are not supposed to prescribe anything in an emergency. Finally, it is always a good idea to share a link with the patient so that he can give a feedback. This is also important in case later on the patient wants to file a case against us. We can say that at the end of the consultation, he has given a feedback that he was satisfied. So now if he's saying that he was not satisfied, he is not saying the correct thing. We should also complete the documentation process at our end, because the guidelines indicate that we have to store all these documents or records in a proper way. And we should also discuss with our staff and give them a feedback on when they have to connect to the patient the next time. Next, please. Now, this is what the Prime Minister has said. On his tweet, he said, another example is telemedicine. This is a positive sign, and we should think of business models to help further telemedicine across the world. So this is ample evidence, clear evidence that this telemedicine or video consultation is not for the duration of the COVID pandemic alone. This is there for years to come, and we should capitalize on this. Next. And why should we capitalize on that? Because the telemedicine market is huge. If you take the Indian population is 1.3 billion, and if you see that 80% has no direct physical access to a specialist doctor, that is 1.04 billion. And out of them, let's say 80% would require the advice of a specialist doctor. So the potential beneficiaries are 832 million. And let us say that only 10% of them will seek out your medical attention. That is still 83.2 million people. And conversion of that to a virtual consultation from rural India happens in 1 out of 4, and that is 20.8 million people. So this is the scope. If you start a virtual consultation today, 20.8 million people could benefit out of that, and that is a huge number. Next, please. In fact, if you look at this Facebook video, Dr. Advani is right on top of the line. He has put this on Facebook. These are 4 points on this that I want to share with you. One is that this is on Facebook. So this is good use of social media. The second I want you to see is the date on which he has posted. The date is 23rd March. This is 2 days before the telemedicine guidelines were released by the government. So obviously some senior people have the inside information on what to do, and he was well prepared for that. The third is that on the profile, he has expressed his name, his designation, his degrees, and what he is doing. So this is a complete way of expressing what you are able to do and what is your specialization. And on the fourth is available for video chat and online, and below that you will see that 1,500 people have already accessed this. This is the power of social media. This is the power of getting more patients if you have a proper online presence. Next slide. And therefore, not only to the young adult who will come to you, but you can provide these services to 4 generations of people who are at home. And because there is increasing use of home healthcare, like what is being provided by Healwell 24, there are nurses and other attendants who can carry out your instructions at home. And under the telemedicine guidelines, you can give your recommendations and advice to healthcare workers, to nurses, as well as to GPs at the other end. Therefore, please understand that there is a very wide scope on how you can benefit the patients as well as benefit yourself by doing a virtual clinic and a virtual consultation. Next slide. So I will briefly pause here. The theory part is over. If there are any burning questions, I will be happy to take them just now. And after these burning questions are over, we will continue on with practical tips on actually how to do a virtual consultation. So if there are any burning questions, please let me know.
So we have a question from Dr. Shweta Bansal.
Yes.
Ma'am, I will just unmute your mic. I think your username is SB. I will just unmute your mic. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, if there are multi-speciality problem is there, so then can there be group consultations?
So the telemedicine document says that there it is possible to do a consultation between one doctor and the other. So instead of one or two doctors, if there are 3 or 4 doctors, there is absolutely no problem in doing that. As long as you record who were present, what was discussed, and who has advised whom, that is important. So this was a question that another doctor asked me, that there is a COVID patient is admitted in the COVID ward, the COVID doctor is looking after him, the ID person. And because the patient has cancer, they wanted a opinion of an oncologist. So now what should the oncologist do? And I think the virtual clinic or video consultation is the best and ideal situation to deal with such a patient without exposing ourselves to potential infection from COVID. So extrapolating this to more than one doctor is absolutely no problem. It is like a virtual tumor board, and this is totally in sync with what the government wants. So Shweta, you can easily do that. Absolutely fine.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is, what is the best platform to use for the video consults with the patient?
So I will take that with you in the subsequent part of this presentation, because this is a very important question that you have asked, and please wait for a few minutes so that you have the answer to that.
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna it's now the chance of Dr. Vivek Agarwal. I'm gonna unmute your mic. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
So my question was similar to what Dr. Shweta asked, that I was curious regarding what should be the best platform, and can any platform be used, like WhatsApp, Zoom, Skype, MS Teams? I mean, can we use any platform and everything is okay, or is there a specific guideline regarding that?
So that is a very important question, and the answer is very simple. The government has made it very clear in the guidelines document that we can use any platform. In fact, they have said that even a video may not be necessary, and even a simple SMS or a landline phone is enough. So as far as video consultation is concerned, use of social media is permitted specifically in the guidelines document published by the government of India. So using Zoom or Skype or WhatsApp video is totally fine. No problem at all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Can I request Dr. Amish Vora to ask his question? Sir, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead.
Thank you for excellent presentation, sir. I'm attending third of your presentation, but every time it's completely new. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to share with everyone that what sir has. I did 2 video consultations today, and after both the consultations, both the patients were very happy, and they said, "Okay, no, sir, we won't mind paying if this is how you are giving us the time." So having said that, sir, my question is, there are a lot of guidelines and court judgments about medical negligence. Are there any guidelines stipulated, or are there any guidelines to be stipulated for medical negligence in teleconsultation era?
Yes. So two important things everybody should understand. One is that as far as the medical legal aspects is concerned, our responsibility is identical to a face-to-face consultation. So whatever could be our liability in our OPD, so also is our liability in telemedicine. Having said that, there are two important things that protect us. One of that is that if at any time during the teleconsultation or video consultation, if we have a doubt or we don't find that we have enough information to decide what to do with the patient, we can say, sorry, I cannot continue further. Please come to me for a face-to-face consultation and then we will take it forward. So that is one protection that we have. The second protection is that in case there is a doctor at the other end, then the responsibility, the medical legal responsibility is of the doctor treating the patient. So if I have advised Amish and Amish is treating the patient, then Amish, the responsibility is yours, not mine. So if we are on the advising end of the virtual clinic and video consultation, we are safer than at the other end. So I hope that answers your question.
Understood, sir. Sir, very quickly, if the patient insists on face-to-face consultation, can I insist on telemedicine?
So that is also a very important question. And the answer is no. The guidelines document has specified that under no circumstances can the doctor insist on a telemedicine consultation if the patient wants a face-to-face consultation. So that is a clear no answer to that is already there in the document. So are you taking the next question?
Yeah, Dr. Ashraf, you can ask your
Yeah.
question.
This is Dr. Ashraf. Good evening, everybody. I want to know the medical legal aspects of this telemedicine.
So medical legal aspects are very straightforward. They are the same implications as if we are seeing the patients in our OPD. And whatever is our liability when we are seeing the patient in OPD, so also is our liability in telemedicine. Beyond that, there is no additional, no new liability that we have on telemedicine consultation.
Because you may miss many findings on a telemedicine or a virtual clinic,
Right.
vis-a-vis face-to-face consultation.
So the government has said that if we have any doubt in our minds, we should not continue with the telemedicine consultation, or we should request the patient to come to the OPD for us to examine the patient.
Oh, fine.
The other
Yes.
option is that we can ask the healthcare worker or the nurse or another doctor, a GP, to examine the patient, and then we can discuss the findings with the patient. So that is also possible.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Thank you.
Dr. Randeep Singh, I'm going to unmute your mic. Please go ahead, sir. Randeep sir, can you hear me? Yeah.
So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Sir, it was in continuation to Dr. Amish's question. There is a clause in the guideline that patient shall initiate the teleconsult, so that it is an implied consent from the patient that he is agreeing for the teleconsult.
Right.
So how do we ensure that? I mean, how do I keep a record with myself? Suppose tomorrow this is the question that who initiated the teleconsult.
Okay.
Shall I ask for an email, or I mean, how do I store it in my records?
Correct, correct. Perfect. So this is an important question. In the document, there are three words used for a consent. One is implied consent. Second is explicit consent. And the third is informed consent. If the initiation of the process has been started from the patient side, it is implied consent and we don't need to do anything more. Your question was how to document that. So whether it is an SMS, whether it is an email, or whether there is a simple health query. Let us say that I got a phone call on my landline and the patient saying, doctor, I have some sort of itching on my neck. What should I do? This is called a health query. I will then document it in my records, either as a hard copy or a soft copy, that patient called me from on my landline on this date, and this is the name of the patient. I have verified the identity of the patient by asking him for so and so, and he has initiated the teleconsultation by asking that he has some itching on the neck. So documentation need not be a copy of the email. It need not be that you have recorded the audio and are keeping an audio file. Even if you write it yourself and store it, that is considered as acceptable in the guidelines document. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Can I request Dr. Karpa Gavali to ask his question? Sir, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. Katpagavalli. Basically, I'm a dentist and I'm specialized in oral medicine and radiology. So we do, I'm an oral physician. Is it legally allowed for me to do a telemedicine, like a consultation?
Absolutely. You should have no hesitation. You are more than protected or allowed to do telemedicine consultation. Please go ahead.
And what about reporting, sir? Radiology reporting, is it also allowed? Tele-reporting is also
So
allowed?
tele-radiology and telepathology are permitted, has been specifically mentioned in the guidelines document. So again, for all radiologists and all pathologists, please have no hesitation in using virtual clinics and telemedicine consultation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now it is the chance of Dr. Shefali Sardana to ask her question. Ma'am, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So good evening, sir. My question is, can our prescription without a signature or stamp be valid for the patient to buy those medications?
Okay. So I have two answers for you. It depends on what access the patient side has to whatever we are doing. So according to the model guideline and the model format that is mentioned in the guidelines document, our prescription should have our name, our designation, our medical council registration number, our signature and stamp. So unless this is there, it is not right according to the guidelines. Having said that, 80% of the rural population only have feature phones, they don't have a smartphone. So what to do if somebody is calling you from a simple Nokia phone? The government says that in such an instance, if you send your prescription by SMS, then the pharmacy has to respect that. So when the circumstances are such that you can't put a stamp and signature and send it to the patient, then you can do that. The other option is that the patient can give his permission or consent for you to send the prescription directly to the pharmacy. So if he says, I don't have a feature, I don't have a smartphone, I don't have email access, but this is the email of the pharmacy, you can please send it directly to them. Then we can do that also.
Okay, so is it validated? I mean, valid for the patient to?
Absolutely valid. Only precaution you have to do is to make sure that you keep a copy of the prescription that you have given.
And we should ask for a written SMS or a consent for that. What patient is asking. Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Can I request Dr. Vivek Agarwal to please unmute his mic? Sir, I'm trying to unmute it on my end. Perfect, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sir, so today we had a situation where I was physically present in the OPD while my colleague Dr. Chandrakant was at home, and he had done a teleconsultation and he had sent a chemotherapy protocol via mail. So the coordinator there took out the printout of the mail and the document and handed over to the patient. But the patient was a government scheme patient and he required a signature and a stamp. Now, since Dr. Chandrakant was not physically present, so how can whether a e-signature or a JPG of the signature is enough, or if the coordinator can put in a stamp and sign in all Dr. Chandrakant, like those kind of signature be acceptable?
Yes. So again, the document from the government has clearly said that it is possible, and not only is it possible, the pharmacy has to honor it. Now you are not talking about the pharmacy, you are talking about a third party reimbursement. That has not been specified in the document. But how to put a digitally scanned signature, how to put a digitally scanned stamp, and then how to provide that document to the patient, I have a separate webinar for that, and maybe we'll do that and I will ask you to attend at that time. But it's possible to do that. No problem.
Okay. Another question that I had to ask, sir, is that whenever we are taking a consent from the patient for a teleconsult,
Yeah.
especially when we are giving him a chemotherapy protocol over the teleconsultation, and possibly the patient has received previous cycles of chemotherapy after a physical consultation, but now we are giving the protocol on a teleconsult. So are there any specific points that must be included in the consent?
So the most important thing besides your details and the patient details is a diagnosis. And this could be a final diagnosis or a provisional diagnosis. So like I mentioned earlier, if a patient has come to me with a pain in the shoulder, I cannot write shoulder pain as a diagnosis. Shoulder pain is a symptom. It is a history. What I have to write is tendinitis or cervical spondylosis as a provisional diagnosis. So also, if you have a proper diagnosis, patient was already under your care, and now you are going to give another refill prescription, there should be no problem. However, is this a follow-up consultation or a new consultation is specified in the document. So it is not like I have seen the patient in the OPD last year and therefore it's a follow-up patient. No, as far as telemedicine document guidelines are concerned, if I have seen the patient in the previous 6 months, then only it's a follow-up consultation. If I had seen the patient 7 months ago, then I cannot call this a follow-up consultation. If I have had a diagnosis for which I am treating the patient and I want to continue giving medications for the same, up to 6 months, the guideline document and the clarification that was brought out on 11th April specifies that we can refill the prescription for 6 months, before which a repeat face-to-face or video consultation becomes necessary. Now this is applicable to oral drugs. Supposing it is an intravenous drug that you needed to give the patient or a subcutaneous drug, then we should also make sure that there is somebody at the other end who can actually administer the drug. So for subcutaneous drug like GCSF, we might have actually trained the caregiver or the patient's attendant or a relative to give it. For an infusional chemotherapy, we should make sure that a certified nurse is available at the other end to give the infusion, and only then we should write the prescription. But the document clearly says that giving a repeat prescription for chemotherapy patient already under my care is all right for 6 months. I hope that answers your question.
So my question was regarding the specific points in the consent. So what?
No additional consent required.
Okay.
No additional consent. Right. Next question.
Can I request Dr. SP Srinivas to ask his question? Doctor, I have unmuted your mic. Please go ahead with your question. Doctor, can you hear us? So I'll just read Dr. Srinivas's question. There are too many posts on social media. Do they qualify of advertisement of self? Is it not?
So if I'm, go ahead. Is Srinivas unmuted?
Dr. Srinivas, can you hear us? I don't think.
I will just answer the question.
Please go ahead, sir.
So putting a post on social media is not called advertisement. So if I'm, there are several posts that are going on, and I'm glad that you pointed it out. If I send a message that I am available for a video consultation and I send it out to my existing patients or to my friends or to other doctors, it is not considered advertisement because it is not paid for. Moment you pay for something, then it becomes an advertisement, which is a paid advertisement, and that is not allowed.
Thank you, sir. Can I request Dr. Prashant to ask his question? Sir, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Prashant,
yeah, Prashant, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Parekh. It was very nice presentation by you.
Thank you.
My question is that, because there are these old patients of ours which we have seen over years or maybe over months.
Yes.
They have this habit of sending you, just forward because of this current scenario on WhatsApp.
Yes.
And maybe the reports or maybe just queries that occurs to them at any point in time. So how do we change this from an informal setting to a formal, organized appointment-based telemedicine? Any suggestions for that?
Yeah. So we will always find a big resistance from the patient side for two reasons. One is that they are used to disturbing us at any time of the day or night, or whether it is weekday, weekend, 2 a.m. in the morning, they are used to disturbing us. The second is that they are used to getting this information free of charge. Now, what I
Absolutely.
have started doing is, whenever somebody asks me for a consultation like that, I send a message saying that as per telemedicine guidelines published by Government of India on 25th March, the entire process of consultation on this has changed. I have to comply with the government regulations. So I will not be able to respond unless there is a specific appointment fixed for you. So here I do not mention anything about the charges, but I say that unless there is an appointment, I do not respond. And the government document has specified that even if somebody has attempted to contact me and he has seen the blue tick on the WhatsApp, that means he knows that I have read, I still am not obliged to respond, because the telemedicine consultation starts only after I have given an appointment. So if I have refused to reply, it is all right by law, but it is not all right from being polite. So therefore, I always respond by saying that now the guidelines have changed. I have to keep a record because the government wants me to keep a record. So we can discuss this only after I have given an appointment. And then when he asks for the appointment, then I will raise the issue about charges. And I always insist on charges being received first before I give my opinion or I send the prescription.
So there are two issues here. First is because these are patients who you are in connect with for so many months, it becomes difficult. They think that in a dire need, you are actually distancing yourself from them. So that is one aspect which usually I find difficult to handle. And the second thing is that they'll always come up with some suggestions saying that, sir, please reply this time and next time. So it becomes a difficult scenario. So you're more often than not.
Yeah, you have to take a call on how you want to respond. The government guideline does not say that you have to charge. What it says is your charges cannot be more than your face-to-face consultation. Okay, that is all it says. Now, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Any particular mode of telecommunication that you prefer, whether it's Zoom, WhatsApp, or FaceTime, whatever?
I prefer Zoom for many reasons, and in the rest of the presentation, I will share with you what are the advantages of using Zoom. But the important thing is that we have to make the patients listen to what we want them to do. They have been used to this whole entire process of free and disturbing us at any time. But we have to insist, not because we want to charge or because it's convenient to us. We have to insist, saying that now the government has come up with regulations and I have to follow those regulations whether you like it or not. So therefore, sorry, I cannot reply. Because if I reply to you, then I am breaking the law. That is how I am dealing with it.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your question. Can I request Dr. Shruti Kate to ask her question? Ma'am, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead. Ma'am, can you hear us?
So I have read the question. I will just answer. She has asked whether we can do it after our... Go ahead, Shruti. Your voice is cracking.
Really enjoy.
Shruti, I have to interrupt you because your voice is not clear. Kashish, can you just... Yeah. Okay. I will answer the question. That teleconsultation can be done at any time during the regular job or even afterwards. And the liability does not change at what time of the day or night you are doing the consultation. And it does not change as far as the corporates are concerned, because the teleconsultation is from individual doctor to individual patient.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
So now it is much better.
Ma'am, try to unmute your mic. You'll have to unmute it yourself. Ma'am, can you hear us?
So I think we should go ahead with the next question.
Please. Can I ask Dr. R.K. Chaudhary to ask his questions? Doctor, I have unmuted your mic. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, sir. Sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple of queries.
Yes.
One is, once we do the teleconsultation, patient takes it granted, they keep on sending the message every 2 hours, 3 hours. Doctor, this medicine not available. Can we take this medicine? Or this is not available. Can we change this thing? So for how long we need to keep answering their queries?
So once you have completed the teleconsultation, you have sent them the prescription, that teleconsultation is over.
Right.
After that, if they keep on sending you a request, there is no legal requirement for you to answer. What I would do is, if you want, are you asking for a second teleconsultation appointment? In that case, I am giving you the appointment for Monday 10 a.m. so and so.
Right.
So if I get a message on Saturday evening, I will say, please contact me on Monday 10 a.m. and I will answer.
Right,
So
sir.
that is
Got
the
it.
best way to deal with it.
Right. The other thing is whether it is applicable to international patients also. The patient
So
keep calling from the web.
if I am in India and the patient is calling me from India, it is applicable.
No,
If
international patient from the outside.
So that they are not covered by these telemedicine guidelines. So you can do that, but these guidelines are not the rules under which we do that.
Okay.
Okay.
The third question is
Yes.
it necessary to issue the prescription after the teleconsultation?
Only if it is the doctor's prerogative to prescribe medicine. So if I feel that the patient deserves a prescription, then I should give it.
Yeah,
If I
what
feel,
happens many
yeah,
times patient when comes to OPD,
yeah,
for the second opinion, they show the papers of the other doctor.
yeah,
Okay, we are going to get the treatment at that X doctor and at X hospital. Just want to confirm whether it is the right approach or not. If he says, okay, it is okay, they won't require any this prescription and they'll go away.
Hmm.
So similarly, if the patient takes a second opinion over the teleconsultation,
yeah.
so we need to issue the prescription or not?
So only if I want to. Let us say that patient has seen you and is coming to me for second opinion.
Right.
If the patient is going to take my treatment, then I will give the prescription.
Okay.
If the patient is going to continue with your treatment, then I say, please go back to your doctor, and he will call me or I will call him if there is any doubt.
Right.
Okay.
Thank
Otherwise, patients try to play one doctor against the other, and they say that doctor said so and so, so and so, so and so. Please don't listen to that. So
Right,
anytime when a patient says that, okay, I said, please give me that doctor's phone number. I will speak to him directly.
Right. Thank
you. Okay, Kavina, can we move to our next slide? And
So
we
we
will
have the-
continue with
Okay,
the
sure, sir,
questions
sure, sir.
afterwards.
Sure, sir.
So now I hope that you are all convinced that this is a great opportunity, and I'm going to share some practical tips for you. Next, please. So like some people were asking, there are a large number of apps, personalized hospital apps, video consultation apps that are available. Next. So one such app sent me a request, so whether I was interested in it. So just yesterday on April 22nd, 2020, I sent him a WhatsApp message saying, please provide me details. And promptly within 5 minutes, they sent me an email, and what was written in the email is very interesting. They did not provide any details about the capabilities of the app. What they said, one-time charge of 75,000 rupees, and then every time I use it, per consultation of 15 minutes, they are going to charge 100 rupees. And if it exceeds beyond 15 minutes, for every extra minute, it is 6.66 rupees. So if you are assessing any app, please make sure that you read the fine print before deciding whether to use that or not. Next. This is another company that is providing this video consultation, and look at what screen they have shown. This is in the promotional material used by the company, and you will look at the way that the doctor is looking at the patient and the patient is looking at the doctor. I think this would not give me any confidence in terms of appearance or lighting or a cropped image that the patient is seeing. And it also requires location sharing by the patient. So again, this is infringement of privacy, and therefore we have to be very careful in reading the fine print before deciding which app to use. Next. Practo, we all know that there are several catches about how they get commissions, how they, contact patients about directly supplying medicines and so on and so forth. So please remember that there is no such thing as a free lunch. Next. But then I came upon this URL and website which says that best 10 free and open source telemedicine software. So I said, great, this looks like a free lunch. Let me see what it is. Next. So this is the comparison of the free software that was provided in the document. And as I looked down the green ticks and the red crosses, I found that Advanced MD has the maximum green ticks and the least red crosses. So I said, let me look at Advanced MD. Next. So I went to their website. And what is written on the website? It is not a healthcare service. It is a company for global payments. And this company actually takes 30% commission on whatever is transacted through their services. Next. So when I contacted them, they said, I asked a question, what's the catch? And they said, oh, there's no catch. We are providing free services for a preliminary introductory time. So I asked the question, okay, after the introductory time is over, how much do I have to pay to use your app? And the answer was, we cannot respond to this conversation. So again, I'm sharing you that we have to be exceedingly careful about what happens. Next. So where is my free lunch? Okay, it has just disappeared. Next. So the headache of archiving is with the payment apps and which are very expensive, or we can use a traditional old way of hard copies, which are very complicated, and it can also be prone to errors. So what I have done is made a separate Gmail account. And my Gmail for telemedicine consultation is drpurveshtelemedicine@gmail.com. So now, why did I choose this and how do I use this is what I'm going to share with you. Next. So the first is that when I use this email, archiving is only for my eyes. Okay, everything that is archived is on a separate email account which I use exclusively for telemedicine. If you look at this, I can upload an audio file, I can upload a video file, I can upload text, I can upload a chat. If there's a WhatsApp, I can cut and paste that and send it to me by email. And all my prescriptions are also there. And since only I have the password to this Gmail account for telemedicine, it is accessible only to me. Next. Now, this simple solution also automatically provides an auto date and time stamp. It can be customized. The subject line you can see, and I will share with you how I'm customizing the subject line. And it ensures encryption and security, so we are safe. So the government documentation requires us to make reasonably sure that we are using proper security protocols. And if you are using a publicly available email address like Gmail, it has standard encryption. So by law, we are safe. So now let us move to the next slide, which shows how I use the subject line. The first 3 digits are the serial number for each telemedicine consultation that I'm doing. The next 3 digits are the initials of the patient. The next 3 numbers are the serial number of teleconsultation for this particular patient. The next 2 digits are whether it's a fresh consultation, new consultation, or a follow-up consultation. After that, the other 2 are a code of what this consultation mode was. So whether it's audio, video, whether it was prescription, whether it was fax, email, all that comes in the next. And the final 6 digits are the date when which the consultation happened. And I put this in the subject line. So whenever I have to trace this back, when I search my Gmail for telemedicine consults, I can search in the subject line and pull out whatever data I want for any particular place. So this is a code that I have devised for myself, and you are of course at liberty to use this code or any other code that is most convenient to you. But when you are using this on an email, you will be easily accessible to all the data as is required by the government. So you are totally 100% compliant as far as record keeping is concerned. Next. So this, whenever there is a request for somebody, first thing I do is I confirm that they have initiated the process. So I say, thank you for requesting a telemedicine consultation. The second thing I do is I send them an email with an attachment which specifies terms of consultation. So they know that these are the things that I expect them to do. And I say that if you agree to all these terms, only then we can move to the next step. So if they don't respond to this, the telemedicine consultation is over. I mean, it has not started. If they move to the next step, next line, next slide, yeah. So this is what my email shows. And if we go up from bottom, the first one is an image that a patient has sent to me by WhatsApp that I have archived by sending it to my own telemedicine consultation email address. The second one, which says PMP letterhead, is my terms of consultation which I sent to the patient. And then you can see above another terms of consultation. Sorry, that is the term of the second one, which is saying PMP letterhead, is actually the prescription that I sent to the patient. So whatever the patient sent to me by WhatsApp, whatever prescription I have given, or whatever terms I have shared with the patient, all are archived in my specific email address, which is used only for telemedicine consultation. Next slide. And this is how my first reply is going on. Next slide. I've divided that into two parts so you can read it easily. I confirm that I have received your request for teleconsultation via email below. You have requested for appointment on 23rd, which is not possible. So I am giving you an appointment for Friday, 24th April at 10 a.m. sharp. We will be having a meeting on Zoom, and I will provide you with the meeting ID and password once compliance requirements are completed. And then I specify under what Government of India guidelines, what is the compliance that I need from them. Next slide. And this shows, so I need a copy of PAN card of person who's going to pay for my consultation for compliance with income tax rules. I need a copy of a government issued photo ID of the patient so that I can verify the identity. And I then say copy of both sides of the Aadhaar card would be best. I'm not insisting on it because Supreme Court doesn't allow me to insist on it, but I'm saying this is the best document that I would want. And I also want, this email had come from the patient's relative. So I said, I also want a confirmation, consent from the patient that he has authorized you to contact me. And lastly, I write that please understand this is required by law and your help in this matter is most appreciated. So this message is both polite and firm, and it clearly specifies what is required by me because the government wants me to have this. And this should be very clear to the patient. We put the onus on the government for saying whatever our requirement is because of the document that the government has brought out. Next slide. So this is advice on how to prepare for the teleconsultation. So I say, in order for you to have the best experience during the video consultation on Zoom, I also request you to pay attention to the following suggestions. And then I have enclosed a checklist. So, and then I say, even if you are familiar with Zoom meetings, it is a good idea to go through this checklist. Next slide. And this is a checklist which is in two parts. Please make sure that you join the Zoom meeting 10 minutes before. Please clear your browser history and Zoom cache before logging in. And please press the refresh button. This is because sometimes the old meeting ID and old passwords get saved and then they cannot log in. Please have the patient beside you during the Zoom meeting so I can virtually examine her if necessary. And I say, please make sure you are located in an area where there's sufficient light on your face and there is no audio disturbance in the background. Next slide. Be conscious of your surroundings in order to maintain confidentiality. Please use headphones or earpods so both of us can hear each other clearly. And at any time of teleconsultation, if you're not able to hear me, please raise your hand so that I become aware of it. And I also say, if there's any difficulty in understanding the spoken word, you can use the chat feature. So this is a checklist that I sent to them well in advance so they understand what is the technology required and what are the limitations of the technology. Next. So in spite of all this, what I find is patients are never ready. They have either not opened the document or they have not read it or they have not paid attention to this. So please do not expect the patient to have understood and followed all the recommendations on the checklist that you have provided. Please do not get upset or irritated or angry. Please give them a few minutes to sort out the problem at their end. If you are really feeling that technology is not working, then offer to switch to an alternative option like WhatsApp video or a normal audio call. please understand that for your reputation and for your peace of mind, it is best to find an alternate mode of communication and complete the teleconsultation in the same sitting. If you are not able to do this, I have found that the patients really get angry and upset, and then they start blaming us and even giving galis, and then they can use the social media to lead to disreputation for us. So we have to be very careful and mindful of this. Next. Now, why is your display picture or profile picture important? You can see here that somebody has a display picture on the beach wearing the dress that is shown here. We do not want to make sure that we want to make sure that our display picture is proper as far as what the patient is seeing is concerned. Next slide. So I would ask you, if I have to run my virtual clinic, which of these display pictures would be most appropriate for me, for the patient to see me? And what I want to convey will be shown in the display picture. So if I want to convey that I am very techno savvy, then I will use my photograph with the Google Glass. If I want to convey that I am a very professional doctor, then I will use a photograph with me showing the doctor's apron on. And if I want to convey that I'm very casual and I'm more of a friend than a doctor, then I will use one of the photographs that is in the bottom left hand side. So I should choose my display picture based on what message I want to convey to the patient. Next slide. Please do not do this in a video consultation. Please don't lie down in bed. Please do not show your head and the ceiling fan. And please, at your end, at doctor's end, we should not allow somebody to peek, because that is a confirmation of breach of confidentiality. So please do not do any of this. Next. Now, this is the important thing of why I recommend Zoom. And this is because we have to be conscious of our background. Now, if I'm sitting here and talking to the patient on phone, and there is a video consultation and my desktop is showing the background, then all of this creates a very bad impression on the mind of the patient as to what I'm very casual, or I'm sitting in my home and trying to make more money, etc., etc. Therefore, I feel that a virtual background is important. And this is possible on Zoom. As you can see today, the virtual background behind me showing all the logos, including that of Emcure, who has sponsored this session. Next. So I would like to give some character to my virtual clinic. Do I want to convey a message that I am a very good speaker and I have been invited at conferences? Or if my rural population is the largest number of patients coming to me, do I want to convey that I am very one-to-one and I'm very friendly with rural patients and show a photograph of me in a free medical camp in the rural areas? So this is what we have to decide based on what we want to convey to our patients and based on what is the clientele that we expect on the video consultation or telemedicine consultation. Next. So these are 4 options of what virtual backdrop I can use for my telemedicine consultation, and each one has a different perception. And I will leave it to you to decide which one will convey best what you want to convey to the patient. How professional you are, what you are doing, how seriously you take the video consultation, and therefore you want to convey to the patient that he is getting value for money. He is getting exactly what he would get while sitting in front of me in the OPD for a face-to-face consultation. And you have to decide what is best for you. Next. Now we come to fees for telemedicine consultation, and I think this is something which all of us are interested in. The document from the government says fees should be the same or less for what you charge for an in-person consultation. It also says that we have to provide a receipt and an invoice. And my advice is please, please, please take the payment in advance. Next slide. So how to take the payments? So my team was able to look at the following parameters, 12 parameters, and they have looked at the 11 payment wallets to decide which is the best and most appropriate for us. Next slide. And this is a comparison of the 3 most common ones, which is PhonePe, Paytm, and Google Pay. The yellow marks are those which are red flags. So Paytm actually charges 1.75% plus GST to us. They will also have a 4% charge if we have to transfer the money we have received to our bank account, and its security is questionable. PhonePe is slightly better, and instead of a 4% charge, they will charge more only if we are transferring more than 5,000 rupees to our bank account. The best in between these three is Google Pay, because there is no charge and the security is really perfect. So I would, out of these three, if I have to choose one, I would select Google Pay. Next slide. But here I am showing you something which none of you would have opted for or considered, and that is State Bank of India MobiCash. Now, why am I saying this? And this is particularly for people who have got the largest number of patients from the rural parts of India. Next slide. If you look at the details of the mobile wallet on MobiCash, one is that there is only a one-time charge of rupees 20 for KYC documentation. Okay. After that, there is no charge. The second is that it can be used by feature phone users. You don't need a smartphone. If a person is there in a rural area, if he has a simple phone, all he has to do is to send a 6-digit code to your phone for processing the transaction. So this is the best way of getting payment from the rural parts of India where smartphones or laptops are not available. The only problem today is that the KYC requires physical handing over of documents to the bank, and during the COVID lockdown, this is not possible. So you will be able to use MobiCash only after the lockdown is over. Next. But the important thing for us to do is we don't want to lose the patient. So patient convenience is important, and we should give them a bouquet of payment options. They should be able to use net banking. They should be able to use credit card, debit card. They should be able to use Paytm. They should be able to use Google Pay. They should be able to use MobiCash SBI. The more options we give, the better is the chance that the patient will come to us for consultation. And therefore, a bouquet of payment options is always a good idea. Next. The bottom line, again, I'm stressing, is please take the payment in advance. Whether you take it for a single transaction or you take it for 10 transactions, please take the payment in advance. In case you have not taken the payment in advance, please, please, please do not send the prescription before you receive the payment. If you send the prescription, the game is over. Then there is no incentive from the patient side to complete the payment. And by the time the patient comes for follow-up after 3 months or 4 months, he will have an excuse ready for not having paid you. So this is my bottom line to you. Next. Finally, please remember that social skills and emotional IQ are equally important, if not more important, when doing a video consultation. They are in fact more important than all the medical knowledge that we have. We have to own the patient experience. At the end of the teleconsultation or video consultation, the patient should feel happy. The patient should feel grateful to us. And if we do that, then we can be a leader in the virtual clinic consultation, which is like a 20 million persons market. So while we are having the medical knowledge, we should make sure that we capitalize on this golden opportunity, and we should ensure that the revenue or the financial stream continues to flow to us even when we are locked down under COVID. Next slide. So now I end by saying thank you for joining us in today's webinar, and we will take the question answers if there are any. And if the questions could not be answered for any way, then of course you are free to please contact me. And I'm also showing 2 photographs of mine. The one where I'm actually sitting, where you can see something at the back and a pile of files on my right. And because I've used the virtual backdrop, you do not see the untidiness or the clutter in my house, but you actually see a professional appearance and a professional sense is conveyed to the other party. And that is the reason why I say that Zoom teleconsultation is great for a virtual clinic and a video consultation. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. So can I unshare the slides?
Yes, please.
So can I request Dr. Tandon to ask his or her question? Doctor, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead. Dr. Tandon. So Dr. Tandon, I'm trying to unmute your mic, but I'll just ask your question till that time. What is the guideline on prescription of narcotics, especially to international patients?
So as long as the patient is in India, sending the prescription is allowed by the telemedicine guideline. If your international patient is outside India, then there is no harm in sending the prescription. Whether the person or the pharmacy at the other country will honor that or not is their problem. Now I come to the narcotics part. So as far as prescriptions after telemedicine is concerned, the government has divided the drugs into 4 categories: O, A, B, and restricted. Most of the narcotics fall in the restricted list. So it is not possible to prescribe all narcotics. However, the government has come out with the Schedule X drugs which have been divided into permitted and not permitted. And on 11th April, they added a clarification on which of the narcotic drugs can be prescribed. So I can share with you a document that specifies which one you want to use, which one you can prescribe from the narcotics Schedule X drugs. Not everything, but significant number of them can be prescribed. So you should be safe as far as that is concerned. I hope that answers your question.
Dr. Tandon, if you can hear, if you unmuted your mic, you can ask your second question.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thanks for a nice presentation, sir.
Thank you.
The second question was is it better to route a teleconsultation through a hospital, or we need a separate individual portal for this?
So that both are options are possible, and whichever you feel is better for you, you should follow. You could even follow both. So while you are on duty in the hospital, you can use the hospital portal. And if you are not on duty and the hospital does not have any problems of you using your own portal, that is also fine. Right. The government does not restrict you from using only one portal. They say you can use as many modes of communication as you want. So there is no limitation on that.
Right. Thank you for this
assistance.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Can I request Dr. Satish to ask his question? Sir, I'm unmuting your mic. Please go ahead.
Sir,
Yes,
good evening. Sir, is a very nice, informative talk, sir. Sir, I'm having 2 questions. One is it Zoom? Because I heard it is a privacy issue. Is it safe? That's what one question.
Yes.
And other thing is like regarding the consenting, like without like how to do, like only we are doing a teleconsultation, how to do documentation, sign, seal for prescription. Is it like our prescription by sending my email is quite enough, or that's the one question was there in my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as far as Zoom is concerned, the government of India has brought out guidelines on what you can do to increase the security on Zoom. We are following all those steps, and if you follow those steps, like having a meeting ID, meeting password, not using the waiting area, and so on and so forth, and if you use the settings at the time of signing up, then Zoom is totally secure. In fact, it is more secure than some of the others. So I have no hesitation in using Zoom. And supposing by error or by hacking, that is there is a breach of confidentiality and something becomes in public domain, the telemedicine guideline document still protects us, because it says that we have to use reasonable amount of security. And Zoom has reasonable security, so I should not be worried about that. The second part of your question, if you repeat, then I can answer that.
Yes, sir. Sir, regarding the consenting, sir.
Yes.
Like this is Zoom safety, you told me, sir, that consent applied to the
correct.
This one. You told me that a checklist, everything was nice, sir. Regarding, do you take any, is there any medical legal issue we do the teleconsultation without any consent? That's the one thing. And is there any medical legal issue after the prescription, anything goes wrong? That's what is a second
Right.
Yes, sir. Question.
So
yes,
as far as the consent is concerned, if the patient has initiated the process, then
yes,
consent is implied. We do not have to take the consent. So in the example that I have shown, I always write, thank you for asking me for a teleconsultation appointment. Moment I put that, it is evidence that the patient has initiated. I am only responding. Okay. So let us say that I was busy and I got a missed call on my phone. Now I am calling back the person on the missed call. I do not know who the person is or why he called me. When I call the person, he says that doctor, I want your appointment for telemedicine. I say, okay, I will put the phone down. You please send me an SMS or a WhatsApp message saying you are requesting for the consultation. So then I put the phone down. So moment he sends the message that requesting for a consultation, he is initiating, and therefore the consent is not required. Now the last question that you asked was the legal liability of a prescription. Now obviously the legal liability of the prescription is same for a face-to-face consultation as opposed to a telemedicine consultation. And therefore we should be cautious in prescribing medicine only if we are clear about what the provisional diagnosis is and what we need to give to the patient. So if the patient has called me for fever and I'm reasonably sure after video consultation, I've been able to examine his face and I've been able to look into his throat, and I feel that that is all right, he doesn't need any antibiotics, he needs only paracetamol, I can easily prescribe paracetamol, because paracetamol is part of the list O. And list O is over-the-counter medicine, which in any case do not require prescription. So that is safe. If I have to prescribe from list A, B, or restricted drugs like narcotics, then I have to be particularly sure about what I'm doing. And that can happen only if I've seen the patient earlier and I know that the patient is suffering from some disease. So let's say that the patient came to my OPD, I've seen them on a face-to-face consultation, I know he has diabetes and hypertension, and I prescribed metformin and atenolol to him. Now, 2 months later, he calls me on the video consultation and his blood pressure or diabetes are not controlled. And now if I have to add an additional medicine, let's say that I want to add a diuretic to atenolol, or I want to add another anti-glycemic agent, telemedicine guidelines permit us to do that. We should also say that while you're doing this, please keep a check on your blood pressure and blood sugar. Or we should also say that in case of any change or any difficulty, please go to the nearest hospital. So by doing these things, we are reducing our liability, and therefore we should be quite safe. So I'm very happy to prescribe after video consultation. No problem at all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, is there our routine indemnity is going to cover, and is there any issues with the telemedicines?
Right. So our routine indemnity only specifies from which area we are operating. You are already operating in your own state. You have specified that you are operating from so-and-so hospital or so-and-so clinic. It does not specify whether it has to be a face-to-face or a teleconsultation. So my interpretation is that the indemnity covers this also. No problem. No additional indemnity required for the same.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Can I request Dr. Rajesh Jindal? He had a comment.
Sure.
Sir, I've unmuted your mic. So Dr. Rajesh. Yeah.
So it was really nice to hear from you again.
Thank
and
you.
It was all really so very informative. Sir, what I would say is that you would appreciate the list of Schedule X drugs in narcotics, which have been recently allowed by the government, sir.
Right. I will share that document. I will put it online, and we will, Kavina Creation will share the link with you so everybody can access that.
Thank you, sir. So nice of you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Parik, sir, we have 2 requests. Will we get the presentation and the recording by email?
So recording will be edited and put on the Kavina Creations YouTube channel, and that will be accessible to everybody who has participated in today's webinar.
Perfect, sir. Thank you so much. If we missed out any questions, or if anyone has any queries, please raise your hand, or at least, or you can just send it on the chat feature.
Randeep Singh has raised his hand.
Randeep sir, I will just unmute your mic. Sir, I'm trying. Please go ahead, sir.
Sir, this is regarding, I mean, already someone has asked that question. It is about the follow-up prescription for oral capecitabine or oral gefitinib or lorlatinib.
Yes.
Does it come under the restricted category, or we can go ahead? It's a follow-up prescription. I've seen the patient in last 1 or 2 months.
So the drugs that you are mentioning are part of Schedule H, not Schedule X.
Okay,
so
sir.
absolutely no problem in prescribing chemotherapy.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think I've answered all the questions, and that is
Perfect.
a good thing. Um, if somebody finds any more question, they are more than welcome to send an email, and we will try and respond to that also. We can now hand over the proceedings back to MCure for the last comments.
Thank you so much, sir. Can I request Mr. Zoeb from MCure to give the vote of thanks and to conclude the meeting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kashish. Thank you, Dr. Purish Parikh, sir. It was a really informative and insightful presentation. I'm sure, majority of the doubts of our clinicians and everybody are cleared. And I thank each and every participant for making the meeting so interactive, and I'm very thankful to them. So before we end the meeting, I would ask Kashish if, we have kept a post-meeting feedback survey. So can you just put on the link in the chat, Kashish, so that before the end, people can just fill in the form. Everyone, I would request everyone to, can you please give your comments as per the link, and post that we would end the meeting. Over to you, Kashish.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zoeb. We posted the link for feedback. It's a Google form. And we will also send this via email, but we request you to please access it right now.
So wonderful, and once more thanks to Kavina Creations and thanks to MCure for facilitating this and making it a success. I was delighted with the participation, and we had excellent number of people plus very good and important questions. So once more, thank you each and everyone who participated in here. Take care and good night. Stay safe during the COVID pandemic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I will keep the link for another 2 minutes. So you're welcome to access it. Thank you. Rajesh sir, if you can hear me, I have posted the link again. It's in your private chat box.
Ashish, I got it. Thank you.
Perfect, sir.
Thank you.
Great. Dr. Amol, you had a query. How can I get invitation for further meetings, sir? You can just send your email ID and we will add you to our list, to the invitee list for our meetings. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for making this session a wonderful one. I will just keep the meeting on for another minute if anyone has any queries.